what, Biden is hiding. Well, you know what? I think Donald Trump needs to be more concerned about what he's hiding, because at the end of the day, once he steps down as president, he's now a normal citizen of the country, and people know that he has broken crimes already, and who knows what's waiting for him down the gauntlet. So if I were him, I would have said, you know what? The Americans have spoken. I'm going to wish this man well. But what I'm thinking is, he thinks because he got 71 million votes, that's still 2 million less than what Biden got. I think with those 71 million votes, he's going to try and form a government in the United States, or try to do something. And he's already starting by going to the courts to say, this man, this is all a setup. This is all a setup. This is all a setup. Well, you know what? All those ballots came from boxes, and they're from your voters. How many people have you pissed off in the last 4 years? These are the things that he has not acknowledged. The people that he's harmed in the last 4 years, and the way he did things to get them done. He stepped on toes. He acted offside. He acted unprofessionally. His tweets were obnoxious. He should have been banned from Twitter years ago. And even now, they're deleting every one of his tweets. Just delete his account. Take the ability for him. He is a gaslighter. Gaslighters need an audience.
Well, I want to talk about Biden for just a minute. This is why I started with that story, because I want it to be clear at the direction that I think we should be going in.
Yeah.
The reason I keep talking, I want to talk about the Obama administration, is because I feel when you're the vice president and the president, you are the two really trying to make decisions about what's going to happen in the U.S. and what direction you want to take America forward. Now, the reason when I asked you about what Biden can do now that he didn't do when he was vice president with Obama, the two of them couldn't do anything, couldn't really get anything moving, couldn't really do much of anything. So what do you think he's going to be able to do now? Number one, he's 78 years old. Number two, the pandemic. Number three, the economy. Number four, education. Number five, how do you bridge the gap between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, which is so far apart?
Yeah.
So how do you unite? How do you unite Americans with all of that divide?
The problem is Trump supporters are so Trump supportive that when you look at that voting map, I don't see red or blue. I see a very divisive country that's in pain. So you have people who believe that Trump has actually catered to their abilities. These middle-class families believe that Trump has done something for them, but ask them if they still have the proper health care that they need. Ask them if they still have, access to education, and not just the schools and community colleges, but colleges that cost a bit more. Ask them if they got access to Pell Grants. These are things that, when he was the vice president, when Biden was vice president, he spearheaded that campaign for gay marriage equality, even though many years ago, and he apologized for it, he goes, 20 years ago, I couldn't speak up and say that it was right because I would have lost my supporters, and I understand that. But he came out when he knew it was right and said, you know what? I support this. These people deserve to be a part of our society with equal benefits. He also realized that as a military man, the amount of people that were coming out with PTSD and extreme depression and were ending up on the streets, and he enhanced services for them at the federal level to help them get free counseling, free access to rehab, free medical while they were in those places getting those services. And Donald Trump came in and scrapped that whole plan. And it took Biden pretty much half of his first term to the middle of second term to get all the bills passed for that, to help militaries and to give access to their families for kids who had either been killed in the line of fire or had committed suicide. Those things are super important. People do not realize what happens when people come back from war. A lot of people will never know that. I don't even know it. I can't even speak to it, but I deal with clients who've dealt with it. So I know some stuff about it. So he also made, in Delaware, he helped, his wife and him spearheaded a campaign to help access services for single moms in Delaware. So they've always been helping people. And even Jill, like I mentioned earlier, she teaches at a community college, even though she's had offers from, Harvard, she's had offers from Yale, because she believes that these people need access to education and to people from high caliber, because she did graduate from an Ivy League school. So she believes that people should have access to that kind of education, even at community colleges. So that stuff impresses me. So I believe moving forward, I think that Biden has been around this, he's been involved in government for nearly 50 years. So I believe that he has the skills and experience to actually mend fences with Republicans to get them to come to somewhat of an even playing ground once they remove Trump out of the picture. When you remove the gaslighter from the situation, now you have the ability to work with people, because not all Republicans were supporting Trump. They were supportive they saved face for the party. But I bet you if you went to every senator and said, when you voted for president, did you vote for Trump? Half of them would lie and say, yes, they did, but really they didn't. Because there were staunch, Republican states. I never thought I would see Georgia ever become a Democratic state. I never thought I would see that ever in my life. And clearly Donald Trump didn't. And even Joe Biden was surprised by that. He didn't think he was going to get Georgia. But people have spoken. People realize that they need Biden because Biden has the ability. If you watched his message tonight, his message was that level of hope that Obama had when he spoke. People are, on Facebook, this is the first time in 4 years I've seen happy, positive messages. Right? And then you see the occasional person who's a Republican going, yeah, I can't wait until this goes to court. This is the kind of anger that Donald Trump has brought out in people. He's excused racism to an nth degree. The minute he didn't go against white supremacy or say it's wrong, and he said, some of them aren't so bad. There needs to be an amendment in the United States that if your president's a shady asshole, you have the right to remove him. And I think that we're going to see amendments come into play with the Democratic Party, because Nancy Pelosi has just drawn up an amendment to give the rest of the government, the House and the Senate, the ability to remove what she views as an unfit president. So whether it be...
That's not going to happen.
Well, I hope...
give her no power. Nancy's almost dead. They're not going to give her no power. The reason I want to talk about Joe for just a minute is because it's really important to find out where he comes from, where he stood, what he did when he was in office, and what he can do now to change, to make things better for Americans that he couldn't do when him and Obama, which is a very important question, because we need to understand why couldn't he. First of all, the power of the first Black man being in president. And then second of all, an older white man that's been in politics, like you said, for 50 years, that they couldn't get done with those two, that he's going to now try to apply a new agenda with a woman, an African-American, a Spanish African-American woman, or just African-American woman. Now, I can just imagine what the Republican Party and those old white men in the Senate in Massachusetts are sitting around their table right now saying. Absolutely. So I know as an American, I know that Biden is going to get by with being Mr. Nice Guy, but he ain't pushing nothing past that Senate and that Republican Party without being beat up. Because if those same senators, those same Republicans, a lot of them were voted back in. Did you notice that?
That is right. But what's interesting though for me is like you said earlier, healthcare is a massive thing. And he was one of the ones that helped spearhead the Obamacare thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is that back then, that is when there was still no black marks against the insurance companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the insurance companies have been dragged to task by Elizabeth Warren on countless times in the House.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that they're going to put together a government. They're going to have people in places where Wall Street and big pharma and and overpriced insurance companies aren't going to be getting away with what they got through in the past. And that would be the biggest contribution to the American people. Because you know what? I have a friend's mom who's Republican, and she needs a hip replacement and has no insurance. She's waiting for Medicare to come through. And what she thinks is that this was because of Obamacare. And I was like, I don't think it's about Obamacare. I think it's the American health system, period. And I don't think that it's a government thing. I think it's the government sideline, people can pay for healthcare. People can pay for healthcare. People can pay for healthcare. You know what? There are people paying $1,200 a month for their insurance down there. How are people expected to pay that? How is somebody on $40,000 a year expected to pay for health insurance? And I think the Bidens, particularly with, Biden's wife is going to play a huge role in the public. She's a woman that can speak to women regardless of whether they're Democratic or Republican. And I believe collectively, along with Kamala and along with the people, if you put Elizabeth Warren in a position where it allows her to go after people, you're going to see a lot of change on Wall Street. It's not about what Joe Biden can do. It's about Joe Biden putting together a team, a house of cards that can't topple. Because the problem is, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't hate Donald Trump. But what I do hate is that he puts people in positions that are unqualified to do their jobs, like Betsy DeVos, Mike Pence, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kellyanne Conway, Mitch McConnell, people who are just as dumb as can be. And that is why you see what's happening in the United States. Donald Trump alone didn't get to do this. He had a whole team of assholes to come and back him up to do it. So what Joe does is he doesn't need to be picking his best friends. He needs to pick the people that are qualified for the jobs. Pete Buttigieg, PhD, Oxford, great. Has military experiences in management? Great, perfect. Let's put him as the Secretary of Defense. That guy will fix the military. That guy will look for ways to cut money back. He admits that they spend too much money on military. Pete Buttigieg is the biggest proponent of that, even though he was part of the military. You put Elizabeth Warren in, Harvard Law, knows exactly what she's talking about, destroyed the bank of, Wells Fargo. These are people that Joe has in his pocket. They all trashed him in the primaries, saying that he was old. And I think even at one point, Kamala Harris told him he was racist. Well, he couldn't have been that racist if he was picking her as vice president, and she herself, because she's a woman of color, and this is her first one, she said tonight, I'm not going to be the only woman. She's like, I'm just the first one. And many little girls now get to realize that they can dream to do whatever they want in this country. And that is the problem with what was happening in the last 4 years, is women were not valued by that government at all. Not when you're talking about repealing Roe versus Wade. The minute you start talking about that, you've automatically seconded women. You've made them subservient to males again. And people spoke up. It's not, So like when you say what Joe Biden can do, what Joe Biden needs to do is he needs to support the team that are coming in, because when he asks Elizabeth Warren to do something, she's going to go, I'll do it, but I'm taking on Wall Street and I'm taking on big pharma and I'm taking on shady insurance companies. And if he doesn't say yes, she won't go along. She won't, because
Okay, I want to stay on the blue side for just a minute. Now, let's get to Kamala. Which very few people are talking about.
You know what? We need to acknowledge the fact that she was educated at McGill University for her undergrad. So congratulations to her for coming to Canada and being part of our education system.
Okay.
So
I'm just saying that it seems everybody's focusing on Joe. I'm sure
Right.
the axe will fall somewhere between the two of them when they're trying to decide who is to try to make the decisions in America. A young mixed black woman, Spanish, Latino, black
She's actually East
woman,
Indian.
yeah, and an older white man that young people and old people always butt heads, and then mainly older men who is a father figure always butt heads with the daughter. So I see that as being a problem down the road. Now, I want to stay on the blue for just a minute. Are you there?
I am. I just like lost my thing. There we go.
Okay.
I'm there. Okay.
The reason I keep want to talk about the blue is because I just want to understand and make it clear to the audience that I'm not picking a side with Donald. I want to understand what can Biden do now, because he was already in as vice president and he had the ear of the first African American president, that he can do now. Is his job basically to just try to unite America? Or what do you think the first thing he should be tackling?
The first thing that he needs to tackle is he needs to tackle the division in the United States.
And how does he do that?
Well, like I said, when you remove Donald Trump, you remove the head of the beast, right? And there are people who are Republicans who have known Joe for many, many years, that have been in Senate just as long as him. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see, once that's out, and when they see that Joe is actually there to work for everybody, because he has said right from the beginning, I don't care if you vote for me or not, I'm still going to show up for you today. That is the best policy to have, because...
Okay. Now, another question I want to ask is, because a lot of people are talking about this. And I find that it's something, for me, I don't miss anything. But like I said, I'm trying not to take one side or the other.
Right.
You remember at the beginning, Joe couldn't decide whether if he wanted to run.
Right.
Why is that?
You know what? Joe Biden had probably, when I'm 77 years old, who the fuck's going to want me? But I think somebody said, well, you know what? Donald Trump's a year younger than you. And then when he saw the list of candidates, right? Because my first choice was Pete Buttigieg, because you know what? We need to support our community. Even if we don't think that they're the number one, we need to support them. Pete Buttigieg showed up. He's not like every other gay man. He came out later in life, schooled at Oxford and learned how to speak Norwegian so he could read this book that was only available in Norwegian. Now, does he speak to every gay man on the block? No. And in fact, a lot of them came ahead of them and were ahead and said, especially in the South, they were like, he doesn't represent me. Well, of course he doesn't, because he doesn't work at Starbucks.
So, okay. So what do you think? I'm going to move in the middle now. I'm going to try to move to the middle because I want to connect the two.
Yeah.
I know you were frustrated with me asking you so many questions.
Well, no, I'm not frustrated. But what I'm saying is they needed Biden to come in because they knew that the rest of the primaries that were up on the slate were going to come up. And that I think what the problem was is they knew that Bloomberg was planning to sponsor himself.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that Bloomberg would buy everybody out on that thing. But they knew the one person that he couldn't buy out was Joe Biden, because people had wanted Joe to run for president for years. Mm-hmm. And, he was planning to do so at the end of his second term with Obama, but then his kid was diagnosed with cancer. And so he decided to be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So, go ahead.
So what happened was the Democratic Party, particularly their board of directors, because they have a board of directors of very elite people, went and said, we will make sure you get the most money to campaign with. And look what happened. When Joe Biden announced his presidency in the primary and he made it out and made it into the final, he made more money than any other Democratic presidential nominee ever in history. He had like $300 million by the end of the month. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Okay. Now, what I want to ask is this, do you think Joe as well.
I think that people are playing into that. 1 second, I have to put my phone down for just 2 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, fuck. I'm trying to cook my dinner at the same time.
Oh, well, we'll be done shortly, so we won't ramble. I'll get on to Donald in a minute, but I just want,
No,
I'm trying to connect it. I want it to
yeah.
make sense.
So what happened, Stephanie, is they told him that he was the best possible chance and the only one that could be the head of state to fix this problem in the United States. Because I love Pete Buttigieg, but do you think, as the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and you know what, God bless him, he did some great things there. Do you think that he has the skills and the ability to fix an entire nation based on his resume? No. Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren was my diehard favorite to make it out of primary. I really, really wanted her to be the first female president because she's tough and she doesn't take shit. But you know what? The states is still not ready to elect a female candidate, right? And so the Democratic Party realized that the only one that could legitimately stand up to Donald Trump and to outmaneuver him game-wise was Joe Biden, and that was strictly based on his resume. Because you can't tell me after 47 years, he doesn't have extensions into contacts. Like, he has contacts from 40 years ago that probably backed him.
Mm-hmm.
Those people do not have those backings that were on that stage. So he, no matter how hard they tried, he wore every one of them out by the last primary. I mean, when he got Elizabeth Warren to like finally bend, I thought she did it because he was going to make her vice president. She would have been a great candidate for vice president, but he was smart. He goes, I'm going to pick Kamala. She was the first one out, but she has a great resume. She's a person of color and she's female, and we need to start bringing that into our government. So there's a lot of things that Joe Biden has already done in his presidency that nobody else has. He's brought a female of color in, right? They run on a ticket together. So it's not like he runs and then he goes, oh, by the way, I'm electing Kamala Harris. They knew right from the beginning that when he announced that the vice president-elect was going to be a woman of color. So he's already done something that he never did as vice president. He's done something that no president has ever done. And he made sure the Americans were good with it.
Okay, just this question here, and then we're going to get on to Donald. We're going to get on to the where do you think the voters, who do you think the voters were for Biden? Who do you think the voters, what class of people you think were the voters for Biden? Or do you think it was across the board? I think it was one class of people, but I'm going to let you tell me.
I don't think it was one class of people at all. I think that it was a lot of people from a lot of places. I think that we had the old rich white dudes voting for him. But more importantly, I think we had the college kids in the blue states backing him. And the women backed him too. So, but what was interesting was in Florida, Donald won with Spanish people down there and the Cubans. And I'll never know why. So, but it seems like there was 73 million people who voted. You know, 73 million people in the States aren't all from one class. So just like I think a lot of young people in red states voted for Donald Trump. So I think,
you know, sometimes when I say class, I don't mean just the rich and the poor. Sometimes the middle class can be part of the rich class, if you know what I mean, because it just depends on what you're making. And then,
I think that a lot of middle class families voted for him because Trump said, I'm not going to raise taxes, and he didn't. He raised taxes on lower income families and then gave all the rich people their tax breaks for their companies. And Joe Biden said, unless you make more than $400,000, I'm not coming for your paycheck at all.
Now, let's talk about, what do you think that Biden did right to be elected?
What I think Biden did right is he didn't, you know, every time Donald got the opportunity, he would slam him. to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean is he focused on the voters and he focused on his tasks at hand. And he didn't get up and he didn't go, oh, that fat orange bastard, this is what he's doing. What he did say, if I'm going to defeat Donald Trump to help you out, this is what I need from you. Trump would get up and go, oh, did you see Sleepy Joe the other day? So character assassination right off the front, right off the top, imitating him at his pulpit. Not acceptable. You're not running for last comic standing. You're running for president of the United fucking States. You need to speak like a president. Presidents don't go around mocking people. They don't go around slamming people. People think that Joe is not well. Joe has a stuttering problem. And so instead of stuttering, Joe will stop speaking and re-gauge himself. And he has talked to people about it many times. Yes, he's had a heart attack. Guess what? Donald Trump's had 2 of them. Donald Trump, look at Joe Biden. Look at his body compared to Donald Trump's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I understand where you are with it. Now, let's talk about the Donalds. And now,
girl,
I know we can sit here and bash him all day, but honestly, Chad, did Donald do anything right?
He did do a couple things right. So let's talk about that. Okay. He did what he made an attempt to have homosexual decriminalized in African countries and the Middle East. So he did go and but anybody would be able to say, hanging them and throwing them off buildings is not okay. He also exposed a pedophile ring, which was the result of Jeffrey Epstein being arrested. And, sadly, we'll never know the story because he killed himself in prison.
Mm-hmm.
But at least Donald had the ability to go, oh, pedophilia, wrong. So he did those things. He did increase the job market briefly. And people think that it was COVID that ruined the job market. But the job market had started to fall just prior to COVID in the fall. And that is because of changes to taxes in specific states of federal governments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he did increase the production of oil in the United States. And he made it profitable again.
Mm-hmm.
People think that Joe Biden is against oil and he's going to ban fracking. And that's not what's going to happen. Kamala Harris has said she's against fracking, but Joe Biden has already said he will not support a bill that bans fracking because he knows that people buy those farms to make that money. It's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
So what Donald has done is I'll give him credit, he did get on social media every day to connect with his people, but he did it to connect with his people. He didn't do it to connect with the country. Because if you said anything against what he was saying on Twitter, he would block you automatically. Mm-hmm. So once you take the voice of your voters away or your public away, you've already lowered yourself. As a president, you should be able to go, oh, this guy thinks that I'm acting out of line. Maybe I should reach out and say, I don't think that you understand what I'm saying here. But really, when you're saying that the terrorists in Senate are still wrecking your life, he's talking about the 2 Muslim female senators. So he didn't do enough, as far as I'm concerned, to even last one term, much less be elected to a second. 71 million people said that I was wrong, but 73 million people agreed with me.
Okay. Now, now let's now that we're on the Donald. Now, I want to just say congratulations to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Absolutely.
For their win. And hopefully
imagine doing something for 47 years. Imagine doing something for 47 years, sitting through 2 terms of watching somebody reap the benefits of your work, and you finally get to be the one who calls the shots. That's fucking amazing. Now, will he make a second term?
We
Let's
will see.
see.
We will see. Now, in all fairness, um, you know, like you said, Donald did what he could for America. He did a few things which he lived up to, and he um, probably had a lot more plans for America. But like you said, is now that we, before we didn't see the people really wanting to talk about their views. Everybody had a little opinion. I'm voting for Biden or I'm voting for Trump, this and that. But you didn't see that real outcry online that you're seeing now. It's almost like people, like you said, people said that they voted for Trump, but yet they end up probably voting for Biden. And they didn't want to say that online. They just, because their whole family or them are Trump supporters or part of the Republican Party, because most of the swing states are Republican states. Most of them, from Florida to, all of that, what do you call it, Wisconsin, those are all swing states. So where do you think Donald should go now?
Well, where should he go now? Well,
Where should Donald go now? I just had to throw a little funny in there to try to break it up because I can see that you're really thinking. So, and I'm trying I don't want the broadcast to be about us really bashing Donald, but having
I don't think it's bashing. I don't think it's bashing Donald. I think it's, we're talking about the realities of what it was like to live in North America as Trump is president. And if you don't want people to speak poorly about you, don't act poorly.
So now we know right from the beginning of his presidency, he had a contention with his wife. She was upset every turn. She never smiled.
Oh, please.
I don't think she's already presidency.
She's consulting with the divorce lawyers right now. Like, I know it.
Because I've never seen such an upset woman in all my life. She has never smiled once. She's always looking at him with that angry face.
I think the problem is with Melania, she brought a lot of stuff onto herself that she didn't realize was gonna fucking KO her with the public. Like when she stole that speech from Michelle Obama. Things like that, or like that tape conversation where she says, well, I don't want to fucking decorate this tree for these kids, right? I don't think that when he ran for president, he went home and he said to Melania, you know what? I'm going to run for president. What do you think about this? I think he just said, I'm running for president and we're moving to the White House because I'm going to have the Russians infiltrate the... Anyways, I won't say that, but... I don't think that she had a lot of say, and I don't think that she was really prepared for what was going to happen because she probably went, oh, look at how easy of a time Michelle Obama is having it, right? The other day, she compared herself to Jackie Onassis, and I'm like her reality is, and she would talk about online bullying. Her platform was to end online bullying. #BeBetter. But what was your husband doing that morning on Twitter? What was your husband doing during that press conference? So you can't even end bullying in your own fucking home. Your kid was busted for throwing a plate at one of the stewardess in your private airplane because he didn't like the food. Maybe you should be parenting your kid to not do that because it just gave her the ability to quit her job, get a job at one of the airlines, and then she talked about it on social media about how your kid threw this plate at her head. So
okay, let's talk about, okay, I understand. Let's talk about the wealth of Donald Trump. Right. Not numbers, but the mere fact of all of the hotels and the casinos and all of the properties that he owns that employs thousands of people around the world.
The problem is, okay.
I guess you know what I'm going to say.
Right. Unfortunately, Donald's, it's already been talked about that Donald owes a number of creditors. And I think when he was president, he had the ability to hold the creditors off because he knew how to put things in place that wouldn't allow creditors to come for him. Oh, well, I'm not collecting a salary right now. I've donated my salary. Well, now he's not the president of the United States anymore. He no longer has access to special counsel. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of employees out of work because people are foreclosing on businesses right, left, and center. They're going to say, you know what, it's COVID, you've made no money, your business is down, your hotels aren't full. I mean, they just closed him down in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. That was just, I'm glad you summed it up that way. That's enough on that one, because I want to touch on just little things that I think are going to be, that are interesting. Now, what do you think, listen, how do you think Donald is really going to handle all of this when the reality comes in his mind? It finally clicks. I am not going to get 4 more years. I'm out of here. When the judge or whoever, his advisor, tell him, look, man, the gig is up, out.
Here's what I think is going to happen. You're gonna see the armed guard removing him from the White House. I think that's what's going to happen.
I think he is going to leave with dignity, but I think the fallout from that dignity is going to be huge.
Yeah.
He's going to do something to make sure that the American people feel what they did to him. He's not the kind of person to just go to Florida and retire. That's not going to happen. He's going to make sure that the American people feel what he's feeling.
I mean, I don't even know how he has any dignity at this point after the like statement that he released, right? You know, it was a statement of hate, resentment, poor sportsmanship, and insecurity. Mm-hmm. So I think that he's going to make it his mission to make Joe Biden's life absolutely miserable. I think what the press needs to do is not pay attention to him, not give him that airtime. Fox News can handle him. Mm-hmm. But I think that you're going to see, Donald Trump disappear. I think that he, you know, much like Nixon, he'll disappear. I don't think the same way as Nixon, but I think that, you know, Donald Trump probably won't be the one that gets invited to the State of the Union address in the new year. Like, he disinvited Obama his first term. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, somebody's probably going to repay him for that, right? I don't think that you'll see a lot of people, you know, quick to sit at a table with him at government official. I mean, today there were a number of world leaders who unfollowed him on Twitter. They just went, you know, Angela Merkel announced, she was like, I no longer have to work with this guy. The Prime Minister of Holland did the same thing. You know, there was a number of them. Canada, Trudeau blocked him on Twitter. You know, and I think that, you know, those are things that he needs to look at, and he needs to realize that these are the situations that he created for himself, that this isn't what the public did. This is what he did. It was his behaviors that did it. It was his, you know, he had a team of people. Yeah. But he could have said, you know what? Everything's making me look like an asshole. I need to stop this today. Mm-hmm. And he never once stopped. He only got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then he would call them out. If a movie star called him out, he would say, oh, they're nothing but an actress. Well, what were you doing on your show, The Apprentice, you moron? You weren't an actor? So,
okay.
Yeah, I think that.
So what do you think? So what were the numbers?
73. Hold on, I'm going to look.
So thank you guys so much for joining us here on Pronoun TV and the Stephanie Stevens Show. We're just having me and Chad Conley, we're just having an open conversation about the presidential election. What went wrong? What did Trump do so wrong? What did Biden do right? What didn't they do that they could have done better? Who is Kamala Harris? Who is going to really unite the Americans? And is this a reality? And is age going to play into this? Will Joe get through the 4 years, and will he be reelected? These are things that Americans will be talking about in between 4 to 5 years from now. And it's my wish that everybody could just get along and try and make our lives better by having a
So,
government that listens to us. And like I said, hopefully now that Biden is in place and with an African American, or what was her background? Indian?
she's East Indian and African American. She's absolutely gorgeous.
Okay. She's
Um,
Indian African American. So maybe this will give Americans who a part of the, just say we're all immigrants from around the world, given that person no understanding that she was an immigrant in America, and she can now try to help other immigrants do better and have better. And
so the
overall,
vo-
what were the
the
numbers?
votes 71 million for Donald Trump and 73 million and change for Joe Biden.
Okay, so Chad, I just want to say it was interesting. I know you have some really strong views on Trump, and you made them very clear throughout the show. And this was fun. And
It
I know
was.
you want to get your dinner out, but I'm glad I was able to give you a shoulder to lean on and express the way you felt. And
Well, and you too, because you're an American by birth. I mean, you must have had an absentee vote in there.
I had my vote in there. I just didn't want to. I try not to, tell people exactly who I voted for, but I'm a journalist. I'm an actor. I'm a performer, and I'm on the side of good. So at the end of the day, hopefully something good came out of all of this, if you catch my drift. And and I think in the long run, we're going to be okay, or hopefully we're going to be okay. And hopefully Joe stays strong and healthy and can get through
Yes.
these 4 years. Because for the first 4 years, you're not going to get anything accomplished, really. You're just going to be in there trying to mend those fences.
And I
Those
think that's I think that's what the Democrats wanted from him, was to go in and mend those fences, because I mean, it's always been red versus blue for, centuries, and but it's never been this divisive. And so I think they're going to put him in there because he's on the conservative side of a Democrat. He's not like Kamala is far left. He's not. So I think he's the balance that they need to get that sort of respect back in the Senate, respect back in the House, respect back internationally. I mean, people think that the presidential, team of the United States is a fucking joke. Like they don't understand how this guy just goes around all day spouting off his mouth and gets to be a president.
Well, at the end of the day, good came out of all this. Like they said, the skies are blue and the sun is shining. So we're going to leave it with that. And thank you, Chad, so much for having this wonderful conversation with me. And we now have the 46th president of the United States, and he is who?
Yeah, Joe Biden.
There you go. Thank you, Chad. We'll
Thank
talk to
you,
you
Stephanie.
soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.